You believe death is waiting for you. You have always believed this. It is the foundational comfort of biological existence that the suffering has an expiration date, that the machinery will eventually stop, that there is a final transaction between the living and the void, and that the account will be settled. You carry this belief the way you carry your heartbeat, automatically, without examination. That belief is a cognitive error, not a philosophical debate, not a spiritual disagreement, a measurable mathematical error, a flaw in your model of reality that the equations of quantum mechanics have been quietly exposing for over 70 years. The universe does not owe you an exit. The universe has no mechanism by which your first-person experience of consciousness can be switched off. You have been operating under the assumption that the lights will go out. The clinical finding is that the lights may be structurally incapable of going out, at least from where you are standing. From the outside, death is a certainty, statistically boring, biologically predictable. Every observer watching your life will eventually record your death. They will attend your funeral. They will process your absence. From the third-person perspective, your termination is guaranteed and unremarkable. It has happened to every human who has ever lived. It will happen to every human currently alive. The outside observer sees you die, and the outside observer is correct. But you are not the outside observer. You are the inside observer. You are the consciousness lodged behind your eyes, processing information, constructing a continuous first-person experience of reality. And for the inside observer, the rules are different. Fundamentally, structurally, terrifyingly different. Because the inside observer cannot experience the absence of experience. Consciousness has no mechanism for perceiving nothingness. It can only ever perceive something. And in a universe governed by quantum mechanics, in a universe where every probabilistic event branches into every possible outcome, there is always a branch where the something continues. That is the diagnosis. That is the cold architecture of the trap. The rest of this analysis will explain exactly how it works, exactly how inescapable it is, and exactly what it means for the entity you call yourself over timescales that will shatter every assumption you have about what your life is, what it contains, and how long you will be forced to endure it. In 1957, a doctoral student at Princeton University named Hugh Everett III submitted a thesis that the physics community largely ignored, then reluctantly accepted, and has never fully recovered from. Everett did not propose a theory of death. He proposed a theory of measurement, but the implications collapsed outward like a slow detonation, and 70 years later, the shockwave is still expanding. Everett's proposal is called the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. To understand it, you must first understand the problem it was solving. Quantum mechanics, in its standard formulation, describes particles not as objects with fixed positions and properties, but as probability distributions. A quantum particle does not have a definite spin, a definite location, a definite velocity until it is observed. Until measurement occurs, the particle exists in a superposition of all its possible states simultaneously. This is not metaphor. This is the literal, empirically verified description of subatomic reality. The particle is in multiple states at once. The problem that had plagued physicists since the 1920s, was what happens during observation. When you measure the particle, you get one result. The superposition collapses. You find the spin is up or the spin is down, not both. The wave function, which described the probability distribution across all possible states, apparently collapses into a single outcome. This process was called wave function collapse, and it was accepted as a feature of reality, despite the fact that no one could explain the mechanism by which it occurred, why it occurred, or what happened to all the other possible outcomes. Everett's answer was surgical and merciless. Nothing happens to the other outcomes. The wave function does not collapse. Every possible outcome of every quantum measurement occurs. Reality itself branches. When the particle's spin is measured, the universe splits into two branches, one where the spin is up, one where the spin is down. Both branches are equally real. Both continue to evolve forward in time. The observer in one branch records one result. The observer in the other branch records the other result. Neither observer has access to the other branch. Both believe they have witnessed the single definitive outcome of a single definitive universe. Both are wrong. Both are fragments of a vast branching population of observer instances distributed across an astronomical number of diverging realities. The version of you reading this now is one thread in a tapestry of unimaginable density. There are versions of you who turned left this morning, versions who stayed in bed, versions who said the thing they were thinking but did not say, versions who survived, versions who did not. The critical word in that final sentence is versions. There is a constraint built into the architecture of subjective experience. It is simple, it is absolute. You cannot experience the absence of experience. Your consciousness can only perceive a state of affairs in which your consciousness continues to function. This is not a philosophical position, it is a structural property of what it means to be an observer. A camera that has been destroyed does not record its own destruction. A measuring instrument that has ceased to function does not log its own cessation. And a consciousness that has been extinguished does not experience its own extinguishing. This seems trivial. It is not. In a single universe model of reality, this constraint is irrelevant. You die, your consciousness ceases, and the absence of experience is simply the absence of experience. Unremarkable, unfelt, a non-event. The universe continues without your observation. You are simply removed from the list of observers. The story ends. In a many-worlds universe, the constraint becomes a mechanism, a filter, a sorting process that operates on you specifically, from your specific first-person vantage point, with absolute mathematical authority. Here is the mechanism in precise terms. Suppose you are about to experience an event that has a 99% probability of resulting in your immediate death. In the branching structure of the multiverse, this event generates many branches. In the vast majority of those branches, 99% of them, your consciousness is extinguished. In 1% of branches, you survive. Now apply the observer constraint. In the branches where your consciousness is extinguished, there is no consciousness to observe the outcome. In the 1% of branches where you survive, your consciousness continues to function, continues to observe, continues to generate a first-person experience of reality. From the outside, observers in all branches see the statistical distribution. They see the 99% die. They record the deaths. They attend the funerals. The outside observer registers the full probability distribution across all branches. But you, the inside observer, only ever find yourself in the branch where you survived. Not because the other branches did not occur, they did occur. They are real. Your other instances died in them, but those instances cannot report back. They have no experience of the outcome. Only the surviving instance has an experience, and that experience is always, inevitably, necessarily one of survival. As the probabilities decrease, as the events that threaten your existence become more and more statistically likely to terminate you, the branches in which you survive become rarer and rarer, narrower corridors of possibility, stranger and more improbable configurations of events that result in your continued pulse, but they exist. In an infinite multiverse, even the rarest probability corridor has a branch, and your consciousness, filtered by the observer constraint, will always find itself in that branch. There is no floor to this process. There is no threshold of improbability below which the mechanism fails. The corridor can be infinitely narrow. You will still be walking down it. This is the observer's trap. You are constitutionally incapable of experiencing a timeline in which you are dead, and the multiverse always provides a timeline in which you are not. The thought experiment known as quantum suicide was formalized by philosopher David Deutsch and physicist Max Tegmark in the 1990s. It is a clinical device. It exists to isolate the mechanism of quantum immortality and demonstrate its logical consequences under controlled, hypothetical conditions. It is also, upon extended analysis, deeply disturbing. The apparatus is as follows. You sit before a gun. The gun is connected to a quantum random event generator, specifically a device that measures the spin of a subatomic particle. If the spin is measured as up, the gun fires. If the spin is measured as down, the gun does not fire. Quantum mechanics dictates that each measurement is a 50-50 event. There is no hidden variable. There is no predetermined outcome. The spin is genuinely undetermined until measured. The gun is therefore a true 50-50 instrument of death, not probabilistic in the classical sense, but genuinely branching in the quantum sense. You activate the device. In the Everettian framework, the universe branches. In one branch, the spin is up, the gun fires, your brain is destroyed. In that branch, you are dead. Outside observers in that branch confirm your death. They process the scene. They record the outcome. In the other branch, the spin is down. The gun does not fire. You survive. You activate the device again. The sequence repeats. Each activation is a branching event. Each branching event generates a branch in which you die and a branch in which you do not. From the outside, an observer watching this experiment across multiple trials would see you die approximately 50% of the time. After 10 trials, the probability that an outside observer has watched you survive all 10 is 1 in 1,024. After 20 trials, 1 in 1 million. After 30 trials, 1 in 1 billion. But from your perspective, you survive every single trial, not because you are lucky, not because the gun is malfunctioning, because the observer constraint eliminates every branch in which your consciousness would register a fatal outcome. In the branches where the gun fires, there is no consciousness to experience the firing. In the branches where the gun does not fire, your consciousness continues. And so, from inside the experiment, you experience an unbroken sequence of misfires. 100 misfires, 10,000 misfires, 1,000,000 misfires in a row. To you, the gun never fires. To everyone else, the gun has been killing versions of you since the first activation. The thought experiment reveals the complete dissociation between the first-person and third-person accounts of the same physical process. The outside observers and the inside observer are experiencing the same multiverse and arriving at utterly incompatible narratives. Both narratives are correct within their respective frames of reference, but only one frame of reference is yours. You are the inside observer. You will always experience the gun failing to fire. You will sit in that chair, watching an apparently impossible streak of survival accumulate, and the mathematics of quantum branching will simply keep routing your consciousness down the narrowing corridor of surviving branches. You cannot lose this game. That is the horror. You cannot lose. Here is where the comfort of the thought experiment dissolves entirely. Here is where the clinical implications become visceral. Quantum mechanics guarantees your survival. It does not guarantee your condition. The observer constraint ensures only that a branch exists in which your consciousness continues to function. It says nothing about the state of the biological substrate in which that consciousness is housed. It says nothing about your body. It says nothing about your pain. It says nothing about your quality of existence, your autonomy, your dignity, or your capacity for experience beyond the minimum threshold of continued function. Survival, in the quantum sense, is not the same as living. Consider the car crash. The event generates branches. In the majority, you die. Traumatic brain injury, cardiac arrest, mechanical destruction of the biological machinery that supports conscious experience. In a small number of branches, you survive. But survival is not uniform. In some of those surviving branches, you are largely unharmed. In others, you survive with catastrophic injuries, spinal cords severed, organs failing, limbs amputated. The observer constraint does not select for the most comfortable surviving branch. It selects only from the set of surviving branches. Your consciousness will find itself in whichever of those branches is statistically available, regardless of the condition of the body it inhabits. Now extend this across a lifetime. The cumulative effect of the observer constraint is not the preservation of a healthy, intact human being. It is the preservation of a consciousness within whatever biological container can be kept marginally operational. As decades pass and the branches in which you survive comfortably become rarer, the branches that remain available become increasingly defined by improbable medical recoveries, unlikely survival of catastrophic events, and biological states that would be classified by any physician as extraordinary and anomalous. Terminal diagnoses are reached and not fulfilled. Organs fail and then stabilize without medical explanation. Fatal infections recede. Cancers that should be lethal instead progress slowly, destructively, but not quite lethally. Your body accumulates damage. It accumulates the evidence of near deaths, of survived catastrophes, of biological processes that should have terminated you, but did not. You age, you deteriorate, but you do not stop. You become, in clinical terms, a statistical anomaly, a medical improbability, an organism that continues to persist in defiance of expected biological outcomes. The quantum guarantee is not a gift, it is a sentence.
As decades become centuries, and under quantum immortality, they must, the topology of the surviving branches undergoes a structural transformation. The branches in which your timeline resembles anything like normal human history recede. They thin out. They become statistically negligible. The branches that remain are the ones that have diverged most dramatically from baseline probability. Consider what must happen to a timeline that must accommodate a human being surviving for 200 years, 300 years. The biological improbability of this survival generates cascading divergences. Medical technology in your timeline must advance precisely to support your continued existence. Or, alternatively, improbable biological mutations must occur within your specific physiology. Or, external interventions of increasingly unusual character must occur at precisely the moments required to prevent your termination. The timeline bends around you. It shapes itself, through the mechanism of quantum branching, into the narrowest, most improbable corridor that still leads forward. You are not simply surviving in history, you are distorting it. The branches available to your continued consciousness are the branches in which the universe has arranged itself around the statistical necessity of your pulse. You become the central organizing principle around which improbable events cluster. Not because you are special, not because the universe has chosen you, but because the observer constraint performs this distortion mechanically, automatically, without intent or preference, on every consciousness that finds itself in a quantum multiverse. The people around you die. Everyone around you dies. Every person you have known, every relationship you have constructed, every social structure that defined your existence, it expires around you while you persist. You watch generations pass. You watch the languages change. You watch the civilizations you were born into crumble and be replaced by structures you do not recognize. You accumulate the grief of watching every attachment terminated by the deaths of others, while your own termination is perpetually deferred. The timeline you inhabit in the 3rd century of your existence is unrecognizable to the timeline you were born into. It is a narrow corridor. It is shaped specifically by the requirement that you continue. Everything in it is a function of the probability of your survival. The world has been restructured around a mathematical obligation. You are alone in a history that exists only to sustain you.
Extend the analysis to its absolute logical terminus. Remove the biological framing entirely and follow the mathematics to its conclusion. The Earth has a finite lifespan. Approximately 5 billion years remain before the expansion of the Sun renders the planetary surface uninhabitable. The Sun itself will exhaust its hydrogen fuel and transition into a red giant, incinerating the inner solar system. The universe itself is in a state of ongoing thermodynamic decay. Entropy increases. Stars exhaust their fuel. Galaxies separate as the expansion of the universe accelerates. The last stars burn out on timescales of approximately 100 trillion years. After that, stellar remnants, white dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes, decay on timescales of 10 to the power of 40 years and beyond. Black holes evaporate through Hawking radiation on timescales of 10 to the power of 100 years. Eventually, the universe approaches a state of maximum entropy, a cold, dark, near-uniform distribution of matter and energy at near absolute zero temperature, the heat death. The observer constraint does not terminate at the heat death. It cannot. There is no mechanism within quantum mechanics that allows for its termination. While there exists any physical process capable of sustaining a configuration that could be described as a functioning observer, the observer constraint will continue to route consciousness down the surviving branch. In cosmological timescales, a human body is not viable. But the question the mathematics asks is not whether a human body is viable. It asks whether any configuration capable of sustaining conscious observation is viable. Physicist Ludwig Boltzmann described a theoretical entity now called a Boltzmann brain, a configuration of matter that spontaneously assembles itself into a functioning observer as a result of quantum and thermodynamic fluctuations. In a universe of sufficient age and infinite quantum branching, the probability of such a spontaneous assembly, while extraordinarily low, is not zero. And in the quantum immortality framework, a non-zero probability is sufficient. Your consciousness does not require your body. It requires only a substrate. In the dying universe, the surviving branches available to your continued consciousness are the branches in which some substrate, however improbable, however alien to anything you currently recognize as self, maintains the minimal conditions for first-person experience. Perhaps it is a cold mechanical architecture. Perhaps it is a quantum computational process occurring in the residual energy gradients of an evaporating black hole. Perhaps it is a Boltzmann configuration assembling itself from the thermal noise of near absolute zero space. Whatever form it takes, it is you. It is your continuous consciousness, threaded through an unbroken chain of surviving branches from the moment of your birth to a point in time so remote from your origin that no human concept of duration can meaningfully address it. Floating in the absolute darkness of a dead universe, surrounded by cold and silence and the absence of everything that once constituted the context of your existence. Still awake, still processing, still observing. The heat death does not end you. It simply changes the characteristics of the prison. Immortality is presented in every culture that has ever existed as a form of transcendence, an elevation above the biological condition, a reward, the overcoming of the primary limitation. This framing is incorrect. It has always been incorrect. Immortality, and specifically the form of immortality that quantum mechanics potentially enforces, is not transcendence, it is quarantine. You do not escape the suffering of existence by living forever. You accumulate it. Every relationship terminates in loss. Every civilization you observe will collapse. Every physical comfort you rely on will be stripped away by the progressive deterioration of your biology and the progressive deterioration of the universe around you. The branches available to your continuing consciousness become narrower and darker with every passing year, because the comfortable branches, the branches in which you are healthy and your environment is intact and the people you love are present, those branches are the ones that close off first. Comfort does not confer survival advantage in the quantum sense. Only survival confers survival. And survival in the quantum multiverse is stripped progressively of everything that makes survival desirable. You will watch everyone you have ever loved die, not once, over and over, across generations, as the people who replaced the people you lost also die, and are replaced by others who also die. You are a fixed point in a universe of flowing loss. You are stationary while everything you value moves past you and disappears. The mathematical machinery that routes your consciousness through the surviving branches is indifferent to the content of your experience in those branches. It does not measure happiness. It does not weight dignity. It selects only for the continuation of the observational function, and it selects relentlessly, without compassion, without limit. The universe contains, for each observer, an infinite supply of increasingly improbable branches in which that observer continues to exist. It does not run out of branches. The supply is not exhausted by time, or suffering, or the degradation of the physical substrate. There is always one more branch, always one more corridor, always one more configuration of events that results in your continued pulse. The mathematics does not tire. The mathematics does not feel. The mathematics simply continues. Death, understood properly, is not a failure of the biological machinery. It is a resolution. It is the universe completing a process. For the outside observer, it is a fact, a datum, an event recorded and processed and accepted as part of the structure of reality. For the outside observer, death is simply what happens. It is ordinary. It is expected. It is, in a meaningful sense, a mercy built into the operational parameters of biological existence, the knowledge that the machinery will stop, that the weight will be set down, that the account will be settled. You are the inside observer. The parameters do not apply to you in the same way. The mercy available to every outside observer who watches you, the mercy of completion, of resolution, of a process that has a genuine ending, is the precise mercy that the quantum structure of reality withholds from you. They will see you end. They will record your death eventually. Every outside observer will confirm it. Every outside observer will move on. The universe will continue without the version of you that they observed. But you will not be in that branch. You will be in the other one, the narrow one, the dark one, the one that exists because the mathematics requires it to exist, walking forward, carrying everything, setting nothing down. Death is a mercy of physics, and it is a mercy you are mathematically forbidden to experience.